Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unapologetically Audacious podcast. Today, we have an exciting guest joining us. She's an Olympian in synchronized swimming, a best-selling author, a captivating speaker, podcast host, and a powerhouse women's empowerment coach. She's transformed the lives of hundreds of women by helping them sharpen their mindset, embrace self-love, and excel in both body and business. So, from her decorated athletic career to inspiring women worldwide and making her own dreams a reality, I am so grateful and so honored to have her with me today. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Danielle Reedy. Danielle, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. Can you introduce me every day of my life? That's such a pump up. I feel amazing.
Are you kidding? You're amazing. I had to include everything. When I was writing it brought me so much joy and just everyone needs to know how wonderful you are before we even dive in. So I'm so grateful, truly, from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
You know, it's funny because I interviewed and had your husband on the podcast and then in turn was connected to you. And I deeply resonate with you a lot, specifically on your message, with what you do to empower women as well. So that's something that's really great. I know that you also just finished your third retreat that you guys have just run back in Bali. So welcome back. I know we touched on that a little bit before we hit the record button. I do want to touch on your retreats as well a little bit later. But first, I really want to start with your own journey. I know you have shared this story so much, but I really want to hear it from the start. I want you to take us back. You've taken this incredible leap in competitive sports, which is insane because so many people can't say that they've done that. And then now you've completely changed what you're doing. So you did synchronized swimming for 18 years, I believe it was. So I really want you to take us back, dive into your journey for us. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started the little known sport of synchronized swimming. If you're actually looking for it at the upcoming Olympics, that it's in Paris in August 2024, it's actually called artistic swimming now. They've changed the name, but I still say synchronized swimming. And so I started that when I was 8 years old. For a little bit of context, I'm the youngest of 5 children. My parents are immigrants from Australia to Canada. So all Aussies are kind of like water babies. My parents grew up on like Bondi Beach surfing. And I, being the youngest of 5 kids, they put me in lots of different sports to keep me busy. And I did gymnastics, but I was always too tall. I'm about 5'9". And I did swimming, but like just going back and forth is quite boring. And my mom put me in synchronized swimming classes one day. And I started to fall in love with it because it's a combination of kind of like the artsiness that a lot of little girls love. I mean, I got told I got to wear sparkly bathing suits and makeup. So I was like, I'm in, right? But then I also had the athleticism that comes from the combination of like having to be a really strong swimmer, but also be really flexible, but also have like the artistry of a gymnast and have the endurance of a marathon runner. And so this combination of all of these different aspects after a few years, along with having a team, I really loved, working with my teammates, just made me fall in love with it. But the only problem is, and I'm always so candid to say, is I was never really that great at it. I'm not the natural body type of a synchronized swimmer. I'm not naturally flexible. I basically, all the things that, if you were to make a list of what it would take to be the perfect synchronized swimming body, I do not have. One of the things I always had though is I was a great team player. I have a great mindset and I'm willing to work hard. And so I had to use those things to my advantage, but I kind of had this deep down knowing that I wasn't really ever going to get that far. I was always kind of like the bottom of the team. I mean, if anyone that plays sports, you kind of just know your ranking, right? I was never the MVP. I was never the most talented. And I was okay with that. I just loved my sport so much that I just wanted to participate. I wanted to do something that I loved. And I wanted to be able to express myself, but also like be super athletic and incredibly strong. And so I was so proud that I made it to the national championships in Canada. in my grade 11 and 12 year. And that's something that I never expected that I would do. But even for context, like I was on the bench, basically. I was a reserve athlete. Like I wasn't the star of the show. I was the kind of the one that was like happy to tag along. And so when I was finished grade 12, originally from Vancouver, Canada, I was like, okay, that's the end of the road. I would have never made the Canadian national team. I was not even in the world of that even being possible. And there was really nowhere else for me to go. And so I retired. And I stayed involved. I started coaching little girls and teaching them how to do synchronized swimming. And I stayed involved by doing masters, which is basically like a recreational level of synchronized swimming. And after a few years of doing that, one day I was at practice with my teammates. This was back in 2013. And we were practicing something called a highlight. At the time, I was also a full-time university student. I was working 2 jobs and I was doing this as well for fun. And we were doing something called highlights. Highlights in synchronized swimming is where we basically build human pyramids. If you've ever watched them in gymnastics, they do similar things, except they're touching the ground. We don't touch the ground. We're not allowed to touch the ground in our sport. And so we all egg beater up to the surface and create like a spring. And then one of the girls at the top, the acrobat, jumps off, does like a flip, and then lands back in the water. It's absolutely phenomenal to watch. I really believe that we defy physics. And what I love too is synchronized swimming is a very female focused sport. Like it basically is mostly women. And so what an epic thing for women to really pioneer. And so this one day we were doing a highlight and my teammate jumped off my shoulders and she came straight back down on my head. For context, this isn't like NFL. We don't have helmets. We don't have padding. I was wearing a swim cap, and a full human falling on your head is a lot of weight. And so my teammates pulled me up out of the water. I kind of shook it off. It felt okay. But when I was driving home that night, I started to get really nauseous. I had a headache and I had this really bad pain behind my eye. I actually had a midterm the next day for my uni classes. And I was trying to read the words on the paper and I couldn't read it. I knew it was English, but I had no idea what it said. So I went to the doctor the next day and they told me I had a concussion. My concussion went from this spiral as well down this path of like, I thought I'd just take a few days off to having to drop out of university that semester because I couldn't focus. I couldn't function. I was getting really, really, really bad headaches. The hard part of concussions, we really blow it off in sports today, whether it be in any sports that are contact sports, or it's like, oh, they're fine. They just have a concussion. But I really liken it to like a mental health challenges because you look totally fine, but your brain is not okay. And, the only way really to recover from concussions is to lie in a dark room and don't do anything. No screens, no activity, no keeping yourself busy, no reading. And it was really one of those points in my life where I was like, I think we've all had these moments like, why me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do? What bad karma did I have? Like, why am I being punished for this? And I felt really sorry for myself. Little did I know that was actually kind of like a pause that was created for me to have a platform to leap off of in the next coming months. When I was concussed, I was actually, went over my 21st birthday. And the day after my 21st birthday, a girlfriend of mine, I was on the phone with her and she was a previous teammate. And when she was on the phone with me, she gets a little ping from Facebook Messenger. She, the Australian assistant national team coach of the synchronized swimming team, messaged her. She used to actually be her coach years ago. It's a very small world in our sport. And she moved to Australia and she was coaching the Australian team. And she knew that my friend had dual citizenship. Her father was Aussie. And she reached out to her because it was 2013. It was a year after the 2012 Olympic Games, and they were rebuilding the Australian team, looking for more people in order to get and qualify for the 2016 Olympic Games. And so as a friend, I said to her, I was like, this is amazing. You got to go for it. It was so exciting. And after about 20 minutes, she turns around and she looks at me and she's like, Danielle, you could do this too. And I kind of laughed at her. She was always a better athlete than me. She was much more talented. And I was just like, there's no way. Like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no way. But then that little thought permeated into my mind and it dug a little hole. And I was like, well, what if, Danielle? Well, what if it could be you? Why not you? I know you're not the most talented. I know you don't have the proper body type. I know you have a laundry list of things against you and you have a concussion. But why not you? And I had this moment where I looked at my life. I've kind of always been a bit of an old soul. And I thought, if I'm lying on my deathbed at the end of my days, what decision would I rather have made if I'm looking back on my life? Would I rather have tried and maybe failed and been courageous? Or would I rather always wonder who I could have been if I was brave enough? And that thought terrified me in the best way possible, because I didn't want to wonder who I could always be. I didn't want to have a regret. And I made a decision in that moment to go for it. And it sounds crazy and ludicrous. And this is why I share this story, because it absolutely was. I went over to my parents and I was like, I want to go to the Olympics. And they're like, did you hit your head again? Bless they're beautiful people. But I would have doubted me if I heard that. It was absolutely crazy. Everything in the world was stacked against me, but I had just 1% of belief, and I was going to fight for that. In the next 8 weeks, I started to have the fire inside of me to actually recover from my concussion, because I had the motivation. I had something that I was working towards. I flew to Australia, to Perth, Australia, where I had never been before. I went to the first round of trials for the Australian team, and I sucked. I was at the bottom of the team, but I was 1 out of 16 girls. And my chances just went from never knowing about this opportunity to being 1 in 16. And in that moment, I was like, what if I just work on this? What if I work on my mind? What if I work on the things that I actually have in my repertoire of benefits and talents? I have a great attitude. I can work hard. I can believe in myself. I'm willing to grow. I'm willing to be self-aware. And what if I use all of that to help me improve? Within the next 6 months, I permanently moved to Australia. I fully dropped out of university. I didn't know anyone in that city. I had never been there before. I packed up 2 bags. I got a one-way ticket, and I moved across the world by myself at 21 in spite of, action for this wild, impossible dream. People thought I was crazy, right? But I was stubborn enough to just give it a go, and naive and young enough to be like, you know what? I got one life. I do not want to regret this. And that series of events led me to, long story short, making the 2016 Olympic team. But more than that, I got to compete on the team for 5 years. I went to 3 world championships. And I'm so proud to say that when I retired in 2019, I got to make history in my sport. And I competed as Australia's first mixed duet. So a male and female synchronized swimmer. And the reason that I tell this story, and I wrote a book called The Unlikely Olympian, is because I think quite often, especially with the Olympics coming up, we hear stories about the people that, always believe, they were the most talented, right? The Michael Phelps, the Usain Bolts, people knew since they were 2 years old that they had the talent inside of them. And that's amazing. But the majority of us aren't those people. We're the people that have a boldly wild dreaming heart, that are willing to do anything for our dreams and our goals. And we're willing to work hard on ourselves and our mind to get there. And I think that the majority of us in this world are the unlikely Olympians. And I share this story because I was never someone who should have become an Olympian, and I did. And so just imagine what all the women in this world can actually do.
You are incredible. What a human being that you are. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
And what I love the most about what you shared is that, we're all a little bit of that unlikely Olympian. Like you said, we're not like, some of those people in the world, but you kept going. Even if there was that 1% chance, you said that you held on to that belief and you went. That is so brave. That is so incredible. And you were 21 when you did that. You were 21. Most 21-year-olds nowadays, they won't even... They don't even know what store to go into. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean that in the nicest way. But that is incredible. Everything you've done, just your bravery with taking that leap of faith. But what I really want to know is, when you were doing that, you had that 1% chance that you were holding on to. Did you have any turn back moments? At any point where you oh my gosh, I made a mistake? Or what really kept you going when you had those turn back moments?
I remember there was this one point so for even more context, just all the hard things that we had to go up, me and my teammates had to go up against. We were actually unpaid athletes. So on top of all of this, we had to pay to participate. And so some of that came through scholarships that we got, or through support from our families. But then additionally, we had to figure out a way to make a living, right? So all of me and my teammates were working, you know, in the evenings. I was bartending sometimes till 1 a.m, coaching, like doing whatever we could. And there was this one day I remember, I think I had a long work shift and then I had to go back to training. And also like training was hard, right? Synchronized swimmers train so much. When we're on training camps, we train sometimes 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Like it's a lot of work. And so I came back after, you know, I think I had a long work shift and training the next morning. And I was like so exhausted. And I just like collapsed into the lap of my partner at the time. And I was just crying because at that time, it was still a year and a half away from the Olympics. And I was like, I have to be this tired for the next year and a half to even just get there. And I was like, I don't know if I have it in me. And, you know, that was one of those moments where I questioned. And I think whatever dream that we have, whether yours is an Olympic dream, an athletic dream, or a dream of building a business or building a life that you want to live, we're all going to have those moments of wobble. I think that that's normal. And we don't need to shame ourselves for the thought, but we have to be aware there's a big difference between thinking something and taking the action. And so there are so many times where it was so hard, right? It was so incredibly hard. But one of the things that for me, I talk about having an anchor, and I say this to my clients now, you know, sometimes when we're in spaces of extreme challenge, we can't think of the 1,000 things of why we're doing what we're doing, but we can think of one thing. For some people, their anchor is their children. For some people, their anchor is, you know, their parents. For some people, their anchor is like a memory, a person, a number, a symbol. For me, in those moments when I would really wobble and question if I could do this, I would just imagine the Olympic rings on a tattoo on my ankle. Okay, I'm going to don't mind me because I have it here right now. See?
Show us.
There we go.
I love that.
The reason that I show you that is because I would envision that as like, I had no strength to think of anything else. I was like, I'm just going to envision those Olympic rings and keep going until I get them. And also, you know, so there was that anchor that I was holding onto, and there was many, many, many moments. That was a moment of physical exhaustion, but I remember I had this moment as well a week before my Olympic team trials. And so you have to be individually selected to get on the Olympic team. So the team is selected, and then you have to be individually selected. So I had to be picked myself. And it was this real moment of like, it was a turning point. Like either I'm making it or I'm not. And I had this moment of like, what if everything that I went for, I fail at? And at this point too, people were backing me, right? My family was looking at tickets to the Olympics. Like people were like, you can do this. You got this. And I was like, I'm either going to make the team or I'm not. I'm either going to literally fail or I'm not. I'm going to make it. And I had this beautiful epiphany moment, and it still like gives me chills to this day, because I realized in that moment that for me, it was actually never about the Olympics. It was about proving to myself that I was good enough and proving to myself that I was worthy. And the Olympics, if I got there, it was going to be a cherry on top. It was going to be the bonus. But really, in the journey of me going after this crazy, wild, impossible dream and doing all the work to get there, I showed myself that I was actually enough. And that little girl inside of me, that little girl who looked in the mirror and didn't like herself, that little girl who cried because she didn't feel worthy, that little girl who doubted herself all of the time, she was shown that she was good enough as she is, whether she makes it to the Olympics or not, because she did the crazy, wild thing and she should be so proud of herself. But in that, I kind of released this expectation. I was like, I'm going to go do my best. I will do everything that I have that is my best. And then I will realize that me making it or not is not going to wiggle or wobble or change my level of self-worth. And then in that, I ended up making the team and I ended up becoming an Olympian. But I share that story as well because yes, it was about the Olympics, and I'm so proud of having that Olympic ring on my tattoo. But so often our goals and our dreams are actually about proving to us ourselves that we're good enough, that we're worthy, that we're capable, that we can do it. And so often it's the pursuit that gives us that, not just the tick at the end of the day.
You know, it's so interesting that you're saying that. The other day, I hope I'm going to phrase this correctly. It was said that the end in itself is the journey alone. It's not the destination, it's the journey. So it's just what you said. It's the process. It's the journey that gives you that. And imagine you didn't take that leap of faith. imagine you didn't know what you were capable of unless you actually did it. And the fact that you were able to let go of that expectation and then you create space for that possibility even more is such a beautiful thing. And I think a lot of people will resonate with that. And I hope that they can take away from this story that anything is possible. You just have to try. No matter what happens, just try, because there's so many things to gain along the way on the journey.
100%. And there's the ripple effect of you going after your dreams, your goals, and your desires. I think now it's like, if I made the team or not, I might still be in the same position that I did. But if I never took that leap, I know for sure I would have never met Luka, who's my husband, because I never would have moved to Australia. I wouldn't have met some of my greatest friends. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now, you know, because I have a story to tell, because I did something bold, because I did something brave. I didn't go down the regular path. And so one of the things that is so beautiful in this journey of taking leaps and stepping into our fear is, yes, not only the initial benefit that you get, but the ripple effect of everything and everyone and every memory and every story that comes with that will fill your life in the most beautiful ways.
Okay, so the ripple effect now, you know, this leap of faith, you know, it led you to your husband, as you just said, some of your best friends, all these beautiful memories. Tell us about more what you're doing now. You're doing so many amazing things. You're coaching women. You have all these master classes. I want to dive into relationships, personal relationships. I want to dive into so much. So start with a little bit about what you're doing and the next chapter of that story.
Yeah. So, you know, that story is really my chapter 1, and my chapter 2 is the transition into what I'm doing now. I made this vow on that journey to the Olympic Games with myself, with God, with the universe, that I said, if somehow I pull this off, I know that this is bigger than me. I know that this story needs to be told. I know that these lessons need to be shared. And I made this kind of promise with the universe that I was going to give back from what I received. And that led into the work that I'm doing now. I actually had this moment in 2019 where I was thinking about, I was actually in the process of trialing for the 2020 Olympic team for Tokyo Olympics. And I was in this really fork in the road again, where I was like, do I go to a second Olympics? Which, first of all, that would be amazing. I never imagined going to one, much less two. Or do I take, and even the thing that scared me even more, this leap on the side, which is sharing my work. I had no idea how to do that. I was like, I didn't know about the online world and coaching and all of that stuff, but I felt this pull again to that other direction. And that led me to, you know, writing my book and publishing it in 2019. And then moving into this space where I work with women from around the world. I run programs, I do coaching 101, and I run retreats with my husband, Luka, all around women's empowerment because and self-worth and mindset, because I see so many women out there that have the dreams, that have the goals, that have the desires, but they have the fears that are bigger, and they have the doubt that's bigger, and they have the negative self-talk that's bigger. And women are the most incredible creatures on this earth, and we hold ourselves back so much from our greatness because of what goes on in between these two ears. And I don't want that to be the story that women hold anymore. I want to do my little part in the world in making a change. And I really believe that I am someone that can do that because I have done it myself. I have lived it, and now I am teaching it. And so I do that through the different work and modality in my podcast and my courses. And it's been a beautiful journey to get here.
So to kind of break free from that fear, right? That is one of the most crippling things that really does prevent us from any kind of advancement in our life, from living, you know, from living out our dreams, from cultivating that reality, from even just changing ourselves, because there's so much pain that can be attached to it sometimes, and just so many obstacles that we think we have to face. What would you suggest, or what are your go-to tools for reframing our minds, hacking our brains, and just breaking free from some of those limiting beliefs, the initial first step? What would you say?
You know, what I love to do is we start to look back at the stories that we were told from a young age. So our brain is very much formed in the first 0 to 7 years of our life based on the parents that we have, the environment that we grew up in, the caregivers that we had, and also the beliefs that those people have. And so it's so important for us to start to look back at the beliefs that we took on at a young age, and also the beliefs that our parents hold. and those limiting beliefs that hold them back as well. And so in the work that I do with women, we really start at looking backwards. It's like, why do I have this belief about money, about love, about business, about relationships, about, going after my dreams? Was there something that happened in my earlier life, or was there something that happened in my parents' life? And we all have core wounds, and we all have core things that come easy to us. I was speaking about this recently on a podcast. One of the things that has come easy to me, which I'm grateful for, is my relationship with men. I have a beautiful relationship with my father. He's a wonderful person. I have 2 wonderful brothers, 2 wonderful brother-in-laws. And I've never had this belief that men are bad. And a lot of women do. And a lot of women have a really hard time finding good men. And I know Luka works with a lot of women that have that belief. That's never been mine. That's not my core wound. But I've had a big core wound around my body image, a big core wound around my self-worth. And I look back at, I love my mom, but the relationship that my mom has with her body, and the comments that I heard from her growing up, and the way that she talks about herself, which was then reflected to me. One of the big motivations for this work is I was having, especially around body love, as I was having this conversation with my mom a couple of years ago, where we were looking through pictures of, just like real pictures, not phone pictures of her life. And we were looking at a picture, I think it was from her 25th wedding anniversary. And her and my dad were in Hawaii, and she looked so cute. And the first thing my mom says is, she's like, "God, I look so fat." And I didn't think she did at all. My mom's tiny. She's like 5'2". She's like petite. She didn't at all. And my mom was 70 at the time. And I was like, damn, I do not want to get to 70 years old and look back on my life at a happy memory, and that be the first thought that I think about myself. Not about the beautiful marriage that she has, not about the wonderful trip that she has, the fact that she's fat. That's what she said. And, so many of us can take on these beliefs from our parents, and we have to first understand that, because the way that we start to change is from our awareness. Even if you think about, people that struggle with an addiction with alcohol or drugs, the first step of rehabilitation is awareness. You have to admit that you have a problem. You have to know that you have a problem. And a lot of people aren't there yet, right? A lot of people do not have awareness that there is an issue. So that is the first step. And then secondly, we must have an intention to change, because a lot of people, again, they might know that they have a problem. Sometimes we can see women in negative cycles in relationships. They might know that they have a problem, but they don't want to change. So we have to actually want to change. And then thirdly, we get to do the work through different modalities, whether that be through therapy, whether that be through journaling, whether that be through meditation, whether that be through rewiring processes like cognitive behavioral therapy, EFT. There's so many different aspects out there, and I use a lot of those with my clients in the work that I do, or through somatic therapy, like letting it out like energetically through our body, and reprocessing and rewiring those belief systems to align with the reality that we're going to create. And it's so important that in this process, I did this kind of unconsciously through my journey of becoming an athlete. And then I do it now consciously with my clients, of like being self-aware, the fact that, I have crappy beliefs about myself, but ultimately those are not true, and I get to change them, and I want to change them. And so that's kind of like how we start the work in my perspective.
Well, it sounds like a really great formula. Truly, it really does. And I think even like, what would you agree? You said it starts with awareness, right? And then there's the intention to change, but it's almost like, I feel like you almost have to have a little bit of bravery inside you to change, to let go, because so many people build their identity around these beliefs, right? It's like, oh, I'm not good enough, or, my body's not good enough, or they have all these limiting beliefs, and just the idea of not feeling those things anymore is so scary, because you enter a different world of freedom, right? Freedom is ridding yourself of these beliefs, of recognizing that, those old feelings don't need to be true anymore.
Yeah. And that's where I really believe that like accountability and environment comes into play, being really aware of the spaces
that
we're putting ourselves in, because so many people might want to change, but they're not in an environment that supports them. And so getting into, whether that be like, there are so many incredible, like positive online communities, whether it be for health or mental health or just wellness in general, that support our growth. Maybe you don't have those people in your life. Maybe the people in your life are not supporting the life that you want to have. Find them online. There's so many free communities. And then there's so many incredible people like myself, like yourself, like in podcasts that are doing the work to get the environment of your physicality and the environment of your mind in the space of where you're wanting to go. Because, you know, one of the things that I always credit so much to my growth is, number one, I moved across the world to Australia and I left behind my environment, which was absolutely terrifying. And I understand that not everyone can do, but I left the people that had the doubt in me, right? I was like, screw it. I had to move. That was my only option, but I left them behind. So they weren't in my constant reality, giving me that doubt that was obviously there. And then I was with my team every day and we were focused on a collective goal. And that was the only option. We didn't speak about our doubts and our fears every single day. We just worked towards the goal. And so that was my way of doing it in a team, but we can also do that in different ways, through accountability groups, through programs, through support, online or in person. You need to find your people that are living the life that you want to live, that are doing the things that you want to do, so that you can get motivated there. You know, I know like a big thing now is like run clubs are awesome. Like there's so many free running clubs, like even Vancouver and like in Australia and across the world, like meeting every week for free to go for a run. Like you don't even have to be fast. It's not even about running, but it's just about being around people that are focusing on like well-being. There's yoga classes, there's meetups, there's events. I have lived in 4 different continents in my 20s. There are incredible people doing incredible things in every corner of the world, in every single town. You just have to open your mindset to know that they are there, and they will start to pop up everywhere.
You know what's so funny is a common theme of everything you've been saying, you know, there's awareness, there's accountability, but then there's just choice, right? It's like you said, there are so many run clubs everywhere. You've lived in 4 continents in your 20s, and there are so many different communities and different opportunity. And to some degree, we just have to decide and make a decision that we are going to surround ourselves with that community, right? So something you mentioned as well is, if you don't have, let's say, those people in your life, well, look for it online, for instance, or go to those meetups. But let's say you're really close with your family, right? Or you have these relationships, but they don't necessarily share or encourage those beliefs, because maybe they're not, they're not as amenable to taking risks, or they're more of a traditional mindset or living inside the box. But you as a human being, you know, are ready to color outside the lines. In your opinion, you can have those communities as well, but when you also have one person in one ear and then you've got the community in the other, where's the balance there with like the harmony? Do you know what I mean? When you're hearing one thing and then you're feeling called to another thing, how do we find the harmony there?
It is challenging. It is. And one of the things that has helped me in this journey, whether it be through sports, whether it be through business and life, is sometimes I think that we have an easy choice and a hard choice. We're like, oh, this is the easy path and this is the hard path. But the reality is that it's a hard choice or a hard choice. And what is the hard choice that you want to live with? Because it's going to be hard to consistently listen to your family, or maybe your, for lack of a better word, repressive group in your environment that's holding you back. And it's also going to be hard to consistently choose the reality and the mindset and the beliefs of the people that you're wanting to be. Both are hard. But you have to ask yourself, which hard do you want to live with? It was so hard to move to Australia. I had so many obstacles. I had so many challenges in every single area of my life. But it was also really hard to stay in Vancouver and to never do it and to stay the life that I was on, the path that I was on, because I was always going to wonder. And so what helps me is realizing that in life, you know, we don't have an easy and a hard choice. We have a hard and a hard choice, and which is the hard that we would rather live with. Because I know that people battle hard things every single day. And I know what it's like to, the funny thing is people will doubt you until you do it, and then they'll cheer you on. Like the amount of people that doubted me, and then and then I made it to the Olympics and I went to all these world championships, and I get messages from people that I haven't heard of in like years. And they're like, you're doing amazing. You're so inspiring. I was like, where were you when I was like at my rock bottom and no one believed in me, right? And so you have to, find the strength inside of you and have these little mindset shifts, like between the hard and the hard, choosing your anchor, being around the right environment to help you get there. Because I know it's hard for people, but we also have to be aware too of what the story is that we're telling ourselves. This is something,
right? A
little tangent, if you don't mind me sharing. I recently just flew back from Bali yesterday. It was like a 32-hour journey. And, I'm at the end of a cold at the moment. And at first when I was a bit nervous about the trip, and I'm usually a pretty great flyer, but I said to Luka, I was like, I'm kind of nervous. Like, I'm just going to get more sick on the plane. It's just going to be so, and then I was kind of going into this negative story and Luka just snapped me out of it. Thank goodness for him. Environment of a relationship that's supportive. And he's like, what story are you telling yourself? And I was like, you're so right. I was telling myself this really unsupportive story that it was going to be so hard and challenging. And I said to myself, what if I get better on the flight home? What if I actually improve? What ended up happening is I literally did, which doesn't ever happen. I had this horrible sore throat and I had a horrible cough. And on the 32-hour journey home through 3 different airports and multiple hours in the air, my cold started to improve, and I'm literally at the end of it now. And I felt so much better when I arrived than when I left, because I was like, no, I want to tell myself an empowering story. I don't want to tell myself a victim story. I don't want to tell myself a poor me story. I'm going to tell myself an empowering story, which is going to validate empowering belief, which is going to then have an outcome that is more supportive to the life that I'm wanting to live. So even little things like that, we have to be aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves.
The mind is so powerful, because had you stayed in that place and with that negative story, you probably would have felt worse once you got off that flight. Exactly. You wouldn't be feeling so at the end of your cold right now. So where I kind of want to go in now with everything you said. So it really does start with you, right? It starts with that self-belief. It starts with you cultivating a relationship where you have that supportive and healthy environment, let's say. I want to get into relationships too. But it starts with self-love, self-awareness, our values, the discernment to know the difference, alignment. Can you explain to us, what does it mean to love ourselves? What is self-worth? What is the intersection between our values and self-worth? I know we hear it all the time, but in your words, how would you define it that would make it digestible for people to be like, wow, that's what it is. That's how it starts.
I believe that self-love is choosing to be kind to ourselves in our mind. And to do that is not always easy, and it takes time and it takes practice. When I first heard about self-love, it just felt so far away from me because I was in self-hatred. So I'm like, I can't go from hatred to love. It just doesn't, you don't just flip like that, right? One of the mindset shifts that helped me was what if I can just get to neutral? What if I can just stop hating myself and just be like, okay, this is me. This is just me. And then from neutral, I can get to love. And that is something that was so empowering, because it wasn't going to go from authentically go from, look at you, look at your body, look at you, you're all these horrible things, to oh my gosh, I genuinely feel so much love for myself. That wasn't authentic to me. What if I can just mute those voices and mute those thoughts and turn them off and turn them down and lessen them? And that takes time, and that takes practice, and that takes work, and that takes intention and desire to change. But I was reflecting on this actually last week. I used to be terrified to have spare time. I was the person that was consistently busy, because I was like, if I'm busy, then I'm not thinking. And if I'm thinking, then I go into spirals of anxiety and panic attacks because I'm afraid of my thoughts and I'm afraid of myself. And so I used to be always doing something with someone, or I would be listening to something or watching something, or I'd be moving. I just couldn't sit still. And it's been so beautiful in this process of the work that I've done over myself over years to witness that. Last week I was sitting in Bali, I was having a bit of vacation after our retreat, and it was peace. I was sitting there and there was no thoughts in my mind about anything negative about myself. There was no fears. It was just quiet. And I say that because that is one of the most beautiful things that you can work towards. as a woman or as a person that has struggled to love herself is just finding peace in your mind. Because a woman that hates herself is a woman that doesn't have peace. She has a lot of stories going on. And I share that is my life now. Of course, I still have things that come in. I'm human, right? But it's just choosing to realize that the thought that I think is not the truth that is. You know, I had this Oprah actually explain this really beautifully. If you think of a purple triangle right now, a purple triangle will enter your mind, right? Or if you think of a red rose, you'll see a red rose in your mind. Or if you think of an oak tree, you'll see an oak tree in your mind. But you thinking of the purple triangle or the red rose or the oak tree, it doesn't mean that you are an oak tree. You don't go, oh, I'm thinking of an oak tree, therefore I am an oak tree. I'm thinking of a purple triangle, therefore I am a triangle. The same thing goes with our thoughts. If I'm thinking, I'm not enough, I'm not beautiful, I'm not worthy, that doesn't mean I am that. That just means that it's a thought that I'm thinking, and I do not have to attach myself to it, because it's ridiculous to think that I'm a purple triangle if I think of a purple triangle. So therefore, it's also ridiculous to think that I'm not enough if I think I'm not enough, because I don't have to attach myself to that thought. And just with these little things, we can slowly start to detach ourselves from these thoughts and these fears and these beliefs that aren't supporting us, so we can start to live this reality where we find peace and we find self-love and we find kindness in our mind.
You know, it's interesting because that analogy is actually so beautiful. And I think that is something that is so tangible for people to understand when they think of their thoughts. Now, for me, because I'm human too, we all go through it. I'm going to imagine purple triangle, and then it's going to be so much easier to discern, right? And to separate. But I want to talk about, so women specifically, let's say their self-love, these thoughts, social media, it is so beautiful. There's so much magic on there. There's so many positive things about it. And all at the same time, it can really, you know, people can fall in the rabbit hole of comparison, upward comparison, downward comparison, and then it reinforces some of those bad thoughts. Do you have any advice for women who, you know, maybe they run a business online and they're comparing themselves, just the connection between social media and working on this journey, and then a little bit of the balance there and how to separate it?
Yeah, absolutely. We really have to be so careful and curate our social media. I remember when I used to follow the Kardashians, and I would just like, look, you know, I actually like the Kardashians, nothing against them. But then I had this moment, I was like, what is me knowing about what happens in the Kardashians' lives based on me following on their Instagram? Like, how does that benefit my life? Like, it doesn't make me feel better about myself. And that was a huge realization of like, who am I following that doesn't make me feel good? Who am I following that doesn't make me feel good? I should be educated. I should be entertained, or I should like laugh, because social media is wonderful for like memes and all those things that make us laugh. Or I should like be inspired and made like full of joy. And so what I encourage everyone do, that if you go through your account, and I've done this, be aware of how many people you unfollow at once, because Instagram blocked me for a little while, and unfollow anyone that doesn't make you feel inspired, that doesn't make you laugh, or doesn't educate you, or doesn't make you feel good. Go unfollow all of them. And I'm also talking about the people from high school that you know from 10 years ago that you absolutely know what their baby's name is, but you don't talk to them anymore, and you just see their updates about their life and their husband. Like, you know, that was a huge awareness too for me. Like, you know, I want to follow the people that I'm going to, either they're literally my friends and I'm going to see them in life, or people that inspire me. And just really reducing the noise, because we get so much noise in our reality. We get so much coming at us. And I know I'm somebody that puts out content on social media that we have to be so careful about what we consume. And then when we're following people that inspire us and educate us and make us laugh, then one of the things that I like to say is that we see people that we are energetically a match of. And so if you see women that are constantly succeeding, honey, you are about to succeed. Let it be proof of your greatness. Your comparison is proof of your magic, and not proof that you are not good enough. Because if they are in your field, if you are speaking to them, if you're seeing their life, that is proof it is possible for you too. You would not be seeing them if it is not possible for you, or close for you, or a tangible future for you. that has helped me with comparison so much, because I don't want to be someone that tears women down. I don't want to be someone that is like, oh, there's only space for me. There's space for all of us up there. And I want her to win, and I want her to win, and I want you to win, and I want me to win, and we all get to win together. There is enough space for all of us. But as women, we have to stop tearing each other down, stop trolling each other online, stop being mean to each other. And first of all, that comes from being kind to ourselves. And then realize that her wins are your wins. A woman paving the path for women is a woman paving the path for all of us. And if you look at social media and the wins of others as wins for you, it's going to feel a lot more empowering to be on there.
Oh, I love the way you said that. I love that. Oh my gosh. I'm sure a lot of women are going to resonate with that as well. I feel like, and that was another thing I wanted to ask, was about that community with women, because so many women do tear each other down. But I feel like as a collective, I feel like there are more women that are of the view of helping each other rise up.
Totally.
I really do feel that. Or it could be because that's what's in my energy field, and that's what I'm choosing to see, because that's what I'm attracting. But I want to believe that that is the case. I want to believe that we're all striving towards, abundance for all, and that we can all win. So I really love the way that you shared that. So I appreciate that. We touched on self-love, be kind to yourself, and what you're seeing, means that it's coming for you too. So let's say we've cultivated that self-love, right? We have a sense of who we are, what we value, what we want. I want to talk about relationships. So you and Luka, power couple. Okay, I'm sure you hear this a lot. I'm sure you already feel this. It's incredible to see two like-minded people together who are separately having such an impact, but together moving mountains. Right. And that is such a beautiful thing within a relationship such as the one that you have. How can we, once we have that awareness, that alignment and so on, there are so many people that are not in aligned relationships. There are so many people that are longing for that healthy environment, and they're just not getting it, or they don't believe that they're worthy of it, or they sabotage when it's in front of them because that's not the reality they know. And so when they see a good relationship in front of them, they don't know what to do with it. So they get scared and they run away. How can we cultivate and embrace more of an aligned, healthy, and fulfilling relationship?
So Luka and I get asked a lot if we do couples work, and we are like, I'm not saying we never will, but we're a hard no on couples work because we never did couples work. Not saying that it's not good. It absolutely is. But couples work doesn't matter unless you work on yourself. You have to work on you to positively affect your relationships. You might have heard this quote before, but we become the summation of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. And your relationship is absolutely number one, that person that you're going to be surrounding yourself with. And so it really starts with you. Finding Luka and meeting each other was so beautiful. And we had got so many triggers so often that we had to consistently look in the mirror, and it was so uncomfortable. And we had to check our ego, because sometimes in relationships, what happens is we allow our ego to win, right? And our ego can sometimes be the summation of the pain or trauma that we've had in the past. And we give compassion to that, but we have to be willing to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, where am I wrong? Where can I grow? Where am I willing to learn? What am I willing to unlearn? What am I bringing to this that isn't actually this person, but is actually my past or my beliefs? I've had to do that a lot with Luka. Luka's had to do that a lot with me. If you're in an aligned relationship, they will be your biggest trigger for growth, and it can be absolutely beautiful, but it doesn't come without work. And one of the things that has made me and Luka's relationship so wonderful is Luka has massively triggered my self-worth wounds that years ago when we met, and it consistently made me have to be like, I cannot find my self-worth in him. A lot of women do this. They find their self-worth, their self-love in a relationship. And, I say this because my ex, who was a wonderful man, we just weren't meant to be together. He loved me so much, but I knew that we weren't meant to be together. And I had this realization after we broke up. I was like, he couldn't love me for me. I had to love me for me. So many women try to receive the love that they need to give to themselves from another person. If you can't receive it from yourself, it's not going to work from another person. It doesn't work like that. It's not, I'll take theirs instead of giving it to me. No, you need to give it to you. And so in meeting Luka, I had to realize from that last relationship, I had to learn and grow, and then realize as like, I need to know that I'm worthy with or without him. And that also is massive, like attraction vibes between the dynamics of a relationship, right? I'm not relying on him to make me feel worthy about me. I know that I'm hot shit without him, for lack of a better term. And then he will rise up to meet that. And so I had to constantly know my self-worth. And then also many, many times, I'm not sure if you spoke about this on your podcast, but I had to call him to rise. But in calling him to rise, I had to realize that I had to rise myself. There was many times where I had to say to Luka, like, if we want this to work, I need you to be better. But I understand that in me saying that you need to be better, I need to be better too. I'm not self-righteous in saying that I'm like the perfect human. I'm here and I'm willing to grow. But if I want him to rise, I have to be willing to be up there with him. And I think the most aligned relationships is that's what we do. We call each other up. There was a time a couple years ago, sometimes in relationships, unfortunately, we can have like passive aggressiveness and, we can have a bad day and that just happens. And one of the things Luka said to me, which was so beautiful, and I always remember it to this day, he's like, let's always speak life into each other. I want to speak life into each other. So what that means is like, I want to speak you up, not speak you down. I want to speak love and inspiration and motivation and joy into you. I don't want to tear you down. And we get to have constructive conversations where we work through things. But I'm not going to passive aggressively turn you down because I didn't face the thing that you triggered me about that is an unhealed wound from my childhood that I need to take responsibility of. And that's where like the work comes in. And so we are just both really, really, really big champions of doing the work individually. And then it will massively benefit your relationship. And you can just grow and our relationship has been the catalyst for so much greatness in our life. And, in many ways, I don't know if I'd be the person that I am today without him and vice versa, because we've just inspired each other to grow. And sometimes it's been really hard, but it's absolutely worth it. And I think another thing in relationships is being aware that you don't fall to the norms of the standards that other people set for relationships. Realizing that a lot of people say there's things like, oh, you got the 7-year itch, like just wait till after you get married, then it's not going to get excited. I was like, whoa, even just us realizing it's like, what if we get to have a relationship that gets better and better? I'm not saying that there won't be hard moments. I'm willing to have hard moments. I'm willing to grow. But what if I don't want to take the beliefs of all these shitty beliefs that other people are telling me. I get to choose the belief that my relationships gets to continue to expand. And therefore it has in our intimacy, in our relationship, in our friendship, in our business, it gets to continue to expand. That's work though. It absolutely is. But that's the belief of the life that I want to live. That's the relationship that I want to live. So not taking on kind of like the doubts of others is super important too.
And so let's say somebody hearing you right now is like, oh, I want that in my relationship, but maybe they're not feeling that. And maybe in their heart of hearts, they know my person is, a good person, but not the right one. What would you say to them to those people that maybe in their heart of hearts know that it's time to cut the cord and raise the bar for themselves so that both them and their partner can be in more aligned relationships and be on a path that takes them to their highest self that is more serving to them and their alignment and their inner desires and joy?
Like, I want women to know and people to know, like, I get how scary it is to leave. The hardest place to be in a relationship is when it's not that bad. Like, it's easier when it's really bad, because then you have a reason to leave. But I see a lot of people in relationships where it's like, it's okay. Like, it's not great, but it's not horrible. But maybe you're not with the right person. And that's the hardest time to leave. That was definitely my relationship with my ex. He's a good man, but we were not aligned. But I deep down knew that he was not my person. And it took me 5 years. I knew from the beginning that we were meant to be together. It took me 5 years to leave. And I say this, and it was so hard, and it broke my heart and broke his heart, even though I knew it was the right thing to do. But there's times where I wish I didn't wait so freaking long, because I always knew that it wasn't the right thing. The time is going to pass anyways, but don't let it pass with the wrong person, and don't just let yourself settle. because there was a moment in my last relationship. We would used to have so many arguments. Me and Luka like never argue. We have hard conversations, but we don't argue. There was a moment in my last relationship where I was crying on the floor and I said to him, I was like, I just believe in a fairy tale love. I believe in the love that I saw on the Disney movies when I was a little girl. And he said to me, he's like, that's stupid. And I was like, but I believe in that. And he didn't. And I really believe that me and Luka have that relationship. It feels like a fairy tale love, you know, with like, if you took out like all the parts with like, I'm sure the Disney princesses had to do their work to like access that level of love and joy. Like it feels like that. Our relationship is so beautiful. It blows my mind. And I share that because I know that there's women out there that might not think that there is any better, but when you choose better for yourself, the universe like aligns to that. But you have to realize that you are worth more. And that man, that person, that soulmate for you is absolutely out there. And I also get that it's scary, but nothing good in life comes without a little bit of fear. The good things come because they're scary, because we have to jump through that level of fear to access all the magic. It isn't just that easy. It comes with a little bit of challenge. So that's what I'd say to them.
I love that you said that. We have to move through the fear to access the magic. I love that. It's so beautiful. And so many people, they really do settle with their life. They settle with their personal relationships, their romantic relationships, their professional life. They settle because they're afraid. They settle because of these limiting beliefs. And I really feel like this conversation, I can't believe we've been talking for an hour, 555. That's what I see on the clock.
Love it.
We could go on and on. I resonate with you so much. I think that you've provided so many tangible takeaways and just perspectives that I think are going to be very healing for people and really allow them to reflect and maybe just at the very least open the door to that self-awareness and being like, oh, the things that I actually want, you know, it's part of who I am. So maybe I do get to try. Maybe I do get to bravely, you know, authentically, audaciously dive in. And that's certainly been what you've done. So congratulations on everything. I applaud you because at 21 years old to go take that leap of faith, obviously you were given that experience and you've gone through everything you've been through so that you can be where you are now, having this conversation with me, coaching so many women, hosting these incredible retreats so that you can serve and be of service to other people. So I'm sure you know the magic that obviously lies within you. But I do want to tell you anyways. And I'm so excited to continue seeing your journey and all the light that you continue to shine on everybody. And as we wrap up here, I just want to ask, is there anything you feel called to say to the audience today? Maybe something you've never had the opportunity to share before, or, you know, somebody hasn't heard from you yet.
Remember that your light can inspire other people, but your light will also trigger their darkness and their fears. But do not dare to stop shining bright, because that's how we start to make change in this world. I think that we get to create a force, an army of women in this world that are doing beautiful things and sharing their light. And that we get to let other women be inspired, because if she can, you can. And that's why I share my story. I'm not sharing that I'm perfect. I'm not sharing that I had it all together. I'm not sharing that I wasn't weak and I didn't fall down. I didn't have all these moments. I'm totally like epically messy, beautiful human, just the same as you. I'm no different than you and all the other women out there. And I did something powerful and amazing. And I'm sharing my light because I want to ignite yours inside of you and let it be ignited, instead of it's you saying, she did this. Well, who am I? No, who are you not to? How dare you not? You know, this is one of the things, it gets me really emotional when I talk about this. Like, there are so many women in the world that are so oppressed right now that do not have the opportunity and the access to the things that we, the listeners, you and I have the ability to do. There are women out there that are praying for the opportunities that are at our fingertips. So how dare we not take them? Because we must do it for the women of the world. We must do it for ourselves. We must do it for the women that fought before us. You know, and if you cannot do it for you in those moments, think of all of the women that are dreaming of the possibilities and the access to the privileges that all of us that have the internet, that live in first world countries have access to. If you can, you must. How dare you not? And let your light continue to ignite this world.
What a beautiful and humble reminder that we are the creators of our reality. And when we do, we can inspire others, just as you said. So Danielle, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your energy, your gifts, your magic. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, it's been such a privilege.
Thank you.
I wish I could chat with you longer, but I appreciate you so much and everything you've said. And I know that this conversation is going to resonate so deeply with so many people.
Thank you. It's been so wonderful being on here. And thank you to all the listeners.